Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing Operation Paperclip, the secret intelligence program that brought Nazi scientists to America by Annie Jacobsen. And if you've ever listened to Annie Jacobsen speak, she has probably the most soothing voice of any nonfiction author I've read. The problem for this is I hear her voice when I'm reading. And this slows me down a lot. Same thing happens when I read anything by Anthony Bourdain. I hear his voice because the voice is so great. And it's a challenge because anytime you're hearing something, it's going to slow you down. But if you'd like to, there's plenty of interviews of Annie Jacobsen, and you can hear her voice for yourself. But to get back to the text, Operation Paperclip was originally called Operation Overcast. The reason it got the Paperclip moniker was it was a secret code inside the Joya, which was this agency that helped move these files forward, to let someone know this is a particularly problematic case. We may have omitted some things. They can't put in writing, this person is a high-ranking Nazi, enthusiastic, had the Golden Party badge from Hitler. They couldn't put that in the file, but they would put a paperclip to say, we need to move this through the system because this person is a high-priority target. Now, what is Operation Paperclip? You may have heard of it before, but in brief, it was a program that brought over 1,600 of Germany's best and brightest doctors, engineers, technicians. As I said, many of them with high party affiliations. Some of them wore SS uniforms to work, and who could blame them? SS uniforms look great. But the point is that they were then brought over to America to work on our programs. Now, you could say, well, what would that be? Are there programs building roads, learning out how to make our country better? No, these were weapons programs. And the legacy of, you can see as far as they would reach, would be to Agent Orange. So the defoliation and horrible chemical agent that was used there that caused deformities that still to this day we have legacies of those genetic deformities that were caused by Agent Orange, that comes from the legacy of the Nazi scientists that we brought over. The most famous one that everyone probably knows about is Werner von Braun. He's the person who helped make the Saturn V rockets, and he managed a team very well. Where do you think he learned to manage a team like that? He was at Middlework originally, where the V2 rockets were made, and he had a bunch of slave labor working for him, and many people died making his V2 rockets. You also have Hubertus Struckhold, who's often referred to as the father of space medicine, but he has all of the research, all of the findings he has comes from these high altitude and freezing experiments that he did at Dachau, where he would put people in chambers, subject them to pressures, or he would put people into baths that were cold, bring the temperature down, and these people would die in this testing, and they would monitor how long. And the idea was, well, what if we have a pilot crash in cold water, and how long can he stay alive, and what techniques should we use? And that's all fine for quote unquote science, but you're using human beings. If you could find another way to find this data, that might be acceptable to seek that kind of knowledge, but you can't seek that kind of knowledge at the risk of the murder and torture of human beings. It's highly immoral. What's more immoral is then building on the shoulders of that, which is what we did in America. We took the immoral data and the findings, and then we used that to build our own chemical gas group, a sort of stronghold, which we eventually had to destroy, developing biological weapons. And this points to a world without God. A world without God is one in which all that matters is the natural practical order. Nothing matters in eternity. There's no morals that govern nations. It's just whatever I can do to protect my country and put one over on everyone else. There is nothing wrong with seeking to protect your nation's security. But if you seek to protect your nation's security by immoral means, then what's the point of your country anyway? If your country is built upon immorality and disregard of human life and torture, then what is the point? And I suppose at the heart of this book is Annie is uncovering the fact that if the American people had known that they were receiving a bunch of high-ranking Nazis to come to their country, either there would have been a demand for them to be used for something useful for the country. That's the idealistic view I have. Or they would have said, no, you can't bring these people here. And later on in the book, she documents how some of the stories leaked out and these people were chased off. One of them had to go to Argentina. Another was disgraced later in his life. She also goes deeper. She's a fantastic researcher. really, and you can see the footnotes in the book. She goes and she meets with some of the children of these paperclip veterans who ended up, some of them becoming naturalized U.S. citizens, some of them getting decorations and becoming heroes effectively in their respective academic fields. And she would ask, what did your father ever tell you about what he did? Or did you know? And some of them did, but some of them didn't. Some of them heard about the real story of their parents for the first time while Annie was doing the experiments, was doing the research for this book. And in one particular case, she tells the story in an interview. One of the people she interviews, had a bunch of archives from his father that he said, I don't have any use for this, but you're writing this book, you should have it. And he hands her 2 or 3 boxes, and she just had one piece of luggage. She was taking back to America. She said she threw all her clothes out. She put as many of the papers in as she could and came back. And you have to realize that the swastika is illegal in Germany. And she had a luggage full of documents which had swastikas all over them because they were official Nazi documents. And she was pondering, what happens if I get caught with all of this stuff? What are the Germans going to say? But it never happened. She got back safe, and she was able to bring all that research into this book. And that's the question at the heart of the book is this all worth it? Is whatever progress, whatever advantages we may have gained from Operation Paperclip, is that good for our society ultimately? And what does it say about a society that is willing to overlook murder, slavery, unethical medical experimentation just in order to further themselves for whatever their ambitions were? So what we quote unquote won the Cold War, quote unquote won quote unquote Cold War. What was the moral cost, and where is your nation at the end of all that? So I think it's a book well worth reading. I'm not going to say it's a short book because it's not, but it's not particularly long either. And as I say, the footnotes will provide you with all sorts of different directions if you want to go deeper. But what is particularly useful and helpful is it's not just a bunch of research just handed to you. She weaves together a narrative. I want to say she follows maybe 24. I didn't count exactly, but we keep hearing stories, and she relates them all the way from when they started, during the Reich, during Paperclip, and then their lives after Paperclip. And that way you're constantly refreshed and being interwoven between the V2s and the medical work and other things like that. And also, too, the human element that these people, they just wanted to work. They didn't care who they worked for. And we see some of this in the Expanse series as well. The people who were programmed to work, and they had their morality removed through a procedure so that they could just keep working on something for the entity. So the same thing here. A lot of these Nazi scientists, they didn't care who they worked for. They just wanted to be paid to do their work and to be excellent in their field, absent of the question of morality. And there's a real problem to that, to say the least. In any case, if you'd like to get a copy of the book, that's a great way you can support this channel. There'll be a link to that in the description below. If you want to thank me for this very brief presentation, you can use PayPal or buy me a coffee. That's linked in the description as well. If you want to get early access to videos like this one, as well as an exclusive once-a-month video that I do just for my subscribers, where I talk about what I'm reading, things behind the scenes, there's YouTube membership as well as Patreon to get you in on that. If you want to nominate a book for the future, my Amazon wish list is linked below. You can pick books from there and send it my way. You'll see books on all sorts of topics. You'll see stuff on Palestine particularly. That's for my Palestine bookshelf project. If you want to check that out, feel free. But otherwise, if it's not about Palestine, it'll be books for this channel. Buy a copy, send it my way, and I'll do my best to review it in a timely manner. As always, until next time, enjoy your reading.